The Hunchback of Notre Dame is an animated movie produced by Walt Disney Studios and released in the year 1996. It was based off of a novel by Victor Hugo that was written in 1831. The movie is famous for being one of the most darkest, gothic, and overall realistic film under Disney's belt.
Yeah, you're human. With the flesh and the hair and the navel lint. We're just part of the architecture. Right, Victor?
Yet, if you chip us, will we not flake? If you moisten us, do we not grow mossy?
Well, not the most realistic. Looking back at this movie, it's easy to see why it's up there with the other classics Disney's produced. Despite being significantly darker than other storylines, it does have its moments of charm and wit, without exactly pandering to the younger audience. The film follows Quasimodo, a deformed man living his life inside the Notre Dame bell tower. We follow his story as he meets the captain of the guard Phoebus and the beautiful gypsy Esmeralda, and must save all of Paris from the wicked Judge Claude Frollo. The story seems like your basic Disney storyline for the time. The hero is a lovable guy or girl who must save a kingdom or nation from a villain. But from my perspective, and maybe even others, this movie is particularly different from what animated movies we usually get. Now, being my third review video on my channel, I wanted to pick something great to talk about, something different. I wanted to aim away from the usual Jurassic Park topics that I've usually gone with. People have to find different topics to talk about for their futures on the internet. And lo and behold, I decided to review The Hunchback. Now, before I begin this review, however, let me explain a little bit about why I chose this movie in the first place. Well, I'll tell you. As a young child, I was mostly born and raised on other kinds of movies that seemed tamer by comparison. These movies included Charlotte's Web, The Lion King, The Tigger Movie, and The Aristocats, which also took place in Paris, like this movie. And I think there was a good reason for me to be sheltered from this film. Let's see. On-screen death, lust, religious inner struggles, and an entire town being set ablaze. Good lord, what exactly is this movie rated? Wait, what? Rated G? Oh yeah, you never see any animated movie rated G these days, do ya? Encanto was rated PG and that had family-type mental abuse. What does this G-rated flick have? I guess film ratings were different back then. Well, without further ado, let's dive right in. Let's make sure nothing goes over our children's heads, and take a look at The Hunchback of Notre Dame. We open on an overhead view of the titular cathedral itself, as we meet our narrator, Clopin. Clopin tells a story of why the bells of Notre Dame ring, and who rings them.
Up there, high in the dark bell tower, lives the mysterious bell ringer.
He then proceeds to tell us how exactly the bell ringer came to be. How does he know where he came from, you ask? Disney logic, of course. It's Renaissance Disney. People just know stuff. 20 years before this opening narration, a family of 4 gypsies try sailing under the cover of night to find safety. They are ambushed, however, by a squadron of Parisian guards led by our main antagonist, Judge Claude Frollo, voiced by the late Tony Jay. Frollo is obsessed with hunting down gypsies because he believes them to be inferior to him, because he sees corruption in everything except himself. The gypsy woman tries to run away from Frollo and takes sanctuary in Notre Dame itself. She's killed by being kicked down the stone steps, and her hidden goods are intercepted by Frollo, who finds out it's her hideously deformed baby. He's about to drop it into the well before he's stopped by Archdeacon David Ogden Stiers. Stiers abolishes Frollo for spilling the blood of Notre Dame grounds and say that he can't hide it from the eyes of Notre Dame itself. Fearing for his soul, Frollo decides to take the child and raise him in the bell tower to hide his sin. Geez, 5 minutes in and we go from a fairly childish opening narration to watching an on-screen death and attempted child murder, both of which are in front of a church. I'm starting to see why I was sheltered from this movie as a child. We cut back to the present day, where the child is now a deformed 20-year-old recluse named Quasimodo, voiced by Tom Hulse. Despite being in a similar position as the Grinch, where his isolation made him bitter and cold, Quasimodo is kind-hearted and happy.
Will today be the day? Are you ready to fly? You sure? Good day to try. Why, if I picked a day to fly, this would be it.
Turns out this particular day is a day of a celebration known as the Festival of Fools, and Quasimodo has been watching the festival for the 20 years since he's been in the bell tower, and longs to go there instead of watching.
Oh, man! I thought he'd never leave. I'll be spitting feathers for a week.
Well, that's what you get for sleeping with your mouth open.
Go scare.
Okay, let's talk about the gargoyles. Their names are Victor, Hugo, and Laverne. An obvious in-joke referencing Victor Hugo and his sister Laverne. In comparison to the tone of the film, these three don't really belong. I get that they're meant to be the comic relief throughout the film, but the human characters could bring comedy of their own. Looking back at this movie, it's easy to say that without these three, you couldn't, in good conscience, call this a Disney movie.
It would be a veritable potpourri of educational experience.
Wine, women, and song.
You can learn to identify various regional cheeses,
Bobbing for snails.
study indigenous...
I don't think it's funny.
Come on.
What makes their inclusion in this film even more head-scratching is that in a weird sense, the movie tries to make us believe that they're a figment of Quasimodo's imagination.
Dear boy, whomever are you talking to?
My friends,
I see. And what are your friends made of, Quasimodo?
stone.
Can stone talk?
No, it can't.
But we're shown later that they can reveal themselves to other individuals and give an impact to events around them. In other Disney movies, such as Beauty and the Beast, the inanimate objects are people who have been transformed into objects due to a curse, so their current state of being is easily explained. Here, the only thing they kinda explain about the gargoyles is that they're possibly a way for Quasimodo to cope with being alone in the bell tower all his life. Is he imagining them? Are they magical beings hiding from society? Who knows and who cares? It's Renaissance Disney. They got away with cutting off your ear if they don't like your face. Anyways, after being encouraged by the gargoyles to attend the Festival of Fools, Frollo arrives and proceeds to give him his morning lessons. After Quasimodo accidentally lets slip that he wants to go to the festival, Frollo then starts to remind him in song of what the world would do to someone as hideous as him. He even reminds him that his own mother wanted to drown him as a baby, which is, of course, a lie. After Frollo leaves, it's made clear that Quasimodo has made up his mind and still wants to go to the festival. How does he let us know this, you ask? By singing it, of course.
All I ask is one to hold forever.
You know I can still hear you, right? And I can only assume you're still talking to those stone statues. Can stone talk, Quasimodo? Meanwhile, we're introduced to our other two main characters. One of them is a gypsy woman named Esmeralda, and the other is a captain of the guard, Phoebus. Phoebus has just returned from the war and is now working under Frollo's supervision. Frollo explains to him that he believes the gypsies have a secret hideaway under the Parisian streets called the Cave of Court of Miracles. Sorry, I get the two confused. Anyways, it's time to visit the Festival of Fools that Quasimodo was talking about earlier. We then get another song about how crazy the Festival of Fools is, and it is sung by Clapon. Also, I had to point out a few things I noticed when rewatching this movie. There's actually a few callbacks to other Disney movies in this song. Here, take a look.
It's not every day you see a horse with two rear ends.
Heck, that first one wasn't even out at the time this movie was released. So did Hunchback predict the first ever live-action remake? Well, next to the gargoyles, that's another downside to this film. Apparently, there's a contest for the ugliest face in Paris. Okay, so Quasimodo participates in the ugliest face contest and unsurprisingly wins. And he is praised by the crowd. What the heck is going on here? Is that a CGI stand-in or something? Okay, even I gotta admit, even by late 90s standards, that hasn't really aged well. I know this is nitpicking, but I know that CGI was new at the time this movie was released, but I cannot help but notice this. Did they just not want to hand draw everyone? Oh, well, you know, come to think of it, that actually puts me in mind of... Ah! Oh gosh, I forgot about that. I was in a dark place back then. Okay, all I'll say about this is there are worse effects out there that I will not mention here for the sake of my sanity, for the sake of yours. I won't even talk. Sorry about that, folks. I just suffered from a severe heart attack. Anyway, back to the review. But almost immediately, things go wrong. As a guard, voiced by Patrick the Starfish, throws a tomato at Quasimodo, causing the crowd to turn on him and to torment him. He is humiliated by them as they begin to tie him up and spin him around. But Esmeralda climbs up onto the stand to comfort him and stand up for him against Frollo. A thrilling chase ensues, resulting in some crazy antics that would only come from the mind of the gargoyles.
I'm free! Dang it!
Really? A groin shot? You know this is the Hunchback of Notre Dame, right? I mean, this is a movie with religious issues and mass genocide. You know, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Humor is not this movie's strongest point. Oh, come on, you agree. Alright, I get it. This was made during Disney's Renaissance years. But in animation, there has to be strong moments that'll work well off the animation and be able to stick with you throughout your life. Take Circle of Life from The Lion King, one of my favorite Disney movies of all time. The orchestral score sounding more akin to African music while a kingdom celebrates the birth of its sire. Then there's the ballroom scene from Beauty and the Beast. Two individuals who have come to love and care for each other despite their former prejudice and bring out the best in each other, all the while listening to Angela Lansbury sing a song that she nailed in one go and moved the studio to tears. Even in Aladdin, 2 scenes in that actually. Yeah, there was Part of Your World in which Aladdin and Jasmine are enjoying a magic carpet ride around the entire stinking world, while also singing beautifully on how they're both warming up to each other. And then there was Friend Like Me, where the main comic relief explains his powers, his limitations, and singing voice, with awesome visuals and clever lyrics. Here, some of the humor seems pretty forced. I get that the writers wanted to make the content more aimed towards kids while trying to balance out the dark tone. But in this scene, we just saw a pretty traumatic scene where our hero was pelted with vegetables and humiliated by an entire crowd of hundreds, if not thousands. That, coupled with the stellar voice acting and thrilling music, made for a pretty terrifying scene. But almost a whole 2 minutes later, we got silly slapsticks and a pinball effect. Did the genie direct this scene?
I don't think so. Not right now.
Oh, whatever. I have to deal with the gargoyles in this review. I'll take it. So after Esmeralda disappears, we get a slow depressing scene where Quasimodo slowly limps back into the bell tower, vowing never to set foot outside again. Esmeralda also sneaks into Notre Dame to hide from Frollo's guards. She meets Captain Phoebus, and they proceed to have a little fight before calling a brief truce. Phoebus saves her from Frollo by saying she claims sanctuary, and the Archdeacon also defends her by reminding Frollo of his promise years ago, and then this.
And gypsies don't do well inside stone walls.
But if someone tries to touch you in a place or in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, that's no good.
So, once Frollo threatens to take her should she set foot outside, Esmeralda speaks with Archdeacon Cogsworth, who advises her to pray to God for help. This leads to another song with her and the other Parisians in the church, while also gaining Quasimodo's attention. Of course, he rushes back into the bell tower with her right behind. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, she has a goat. But does he add anything to the story? Nope. Just write him out of the story altogether. You won't miss anything. Anyways, Quasimodo and Esmeralda finally meet each other, and he shows her around the bell tower. He shows her a diorama he made of Paris, and the bells as well, that he also named. He also takes her to the top of the church, where they slide to the bottom, and she promises to return again.
Ring the evening mass, and after that I clean the cloisters, and then I ring the vespers, and whatever's good for you.
Smooth, Quasi. After she leaves, he proceeds to sing a song of how he has found love in Esmeralda, while the gargoyles do what they do best: ruin the moment. But meanwhile, Frollo sits alone in his tower, and gives the viewers the best part of the movie. Yes, Frollo's song is, by far, one of Disney's most well-known villain songs, right next to Be Prepared. Frollo declares how his own lust for Esmeralda isn't his fault, and vows to find her to make her his own. This is all told through powerful lyrics, stunning visuals, and an overall dark tone. The animation used in this scene really sets the tone for what it's trying to say. At first, when Frollo starts singing, it's in a shadowy room. But as it goes on, things take a darker turn. The fiery form of Esmeralda represents how he's becoming overwhelmed with the deadly sin of lust. He vows to find her, whatever it takes, and whoever he has to take down to do it. The next day, Frollo begins his dark siege of Paris. He has Phoebus's guards ransack houses, try to drown gypsies, and even try to bribe them into handing Esmeralda over to him. But Phoebus isn't too keen on his boss's extreme methods, such as nearly killing a miller and his family, and becomes a fugitive. Esmeralda rescues him after being wounded by Frollo, and
Good lord.
oh, dang! This is getting real, man. I mean super real. In the past, we never really got to see the outcome of a Disney villain's rise to power. I mean, sure, we got to see the Pride Lands becoming a wasteland with Scar in charge. But other than that, it's been pretty basic stuff. We don't see what all happens to Agrabah with Jafar in charge. We don't get to see what happens to Atlantica with Ursula in charge. Here, with Frollo on a rampage, all of Paris itself is put in flames, with who knows how many casualties. Jeez, and I thought the 80s had a dark resume. Anyways, with Paris burning outside, what exactly is going to follow? And it better be something dark, something to help further this terrifying image, to give the kids something to really be scared of. Maybe Frollo will have
A guy like you. She's never known, kid.
Oh, good grief. The Gargoyles got a song now. Is that not what you wanted? Of course it isn't! This song is by far the worst part about this movie, besides the gargoyles themselves. We just witnessed the entire city of Paris being burnt by a genocidal maniac. And they switch it to a song sung by the comic relief characters. Almost 5 minutes after the awesome as heck villain song, we get a pointless love encouragement song that doesn't even tie into the plot at all. Heck, that's perfect for these three legless wonders. But wait, they do address the fact that Paris is burning outside?
Paris, the city of lovers, is glowing this evening. True, that's because it's on fire, but still.
You know, I would go over a list of everything wrong with the gargoyles in this movie, but there's really no point. There's really no room in this video to make that list. This assault on your sanity is interrupted by Esmeralda bringing a wounded Phoebus in and nursing him back to health. While doing so, the two declare their feelings for one another and share true love's first kiss. Unfortunately, Quasimodo watches this and is heartbroken. The sadness doesn't last long, however, as Frollo arrives and Esmeralda flees. Frollo reveals to Quasimodo that he knows he helped Esmeralda escape, and says he's leading an attack on the Court of Miracles with 1,000 men. Quasimodo and Phoebus decide to join forces to save Esmeralda and the gypsies. Once they find the Court of Miracles, they are immediately ambushed by Clopin and his men, where they sing a better song than the gargoyles. Esmeralda clears their name right before Frollo makes his entrance, revealing he knew where the Court of Miracles was and that he tricked them into leading them there. Esmeralda is captured and nearly executed before Frollo gives her one last chance to be his, or he'll burn her alive. She of course refuses, and is nearly burnt before Quasimodo swings in to save her. The gypsies revolt against Frollo's army, as Quasimodo gets Esmeralda to safety. Frollo barges into Notre Dame and is about to kill Quasimodo before he finally stands up to him.
All my life you have told me that the world is a dark, cruel place, but now I see that the only thing dark and cruel about it is people like you.
A thrilling fight ensues on top of the bell tower, where Frollo reveals that he killed Quasimodo's mother 20 years ago, and tries to do the same to him.
And he shall smite the wicked and plunge them into the fiery pit.
The judgment of Notre Dame then takes its toll on Frollo and sends him plunging into the molten magma below, ending his threat for good. The next day, the town of Paris finally gets over their prejudice of ugly people and accept Quasimodo as one of their own. Esmeralda and Phoebus become a couple, and all is good and happy in Paris once again.
Don't you ever migrate!
And that was Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Quite honestly, it's a route I wish more Disney movies went for these days. It's not perfect by far, but then again, what things are perfect these days? The animation is really good for the most part anyway. It's really fluent and almost down to earth. The streets of Paris have that certain charm to it that you'd find in Disney films such as Aladdin and even Beauty and the Beast. Looking at this story's main location, you can easily see the type of mood that's going to be set for this film. Most of it looks pretty normal and plain when it needs to be, but when there has to be a fun and jumpy scene such as a Festival of Fools, the animation is a lot more colorful and vibrant. There's a lot more color than you'll find in the normal town settings where there isn't much going on. During the scene of Frollo's musical number, you could tell you're in for a thrilling ride. This is one of Disney's most complex, deep, immoral, and cruel villains ever created. The living embodiment of the sin of lust. When he's alone in his room, he sings about his deepest desires as loud and as collected as he can. Boy, is that relatable. The fire in his fireplace is the perfect metaphor for what is being represented here. The visuals, the lyrics, everything about it is, by far, the best thing about this movie. In any movie, the best thing about it, next to the animation and story, is the villain song. Speaking of story, that's pretty good. I know there had to be a few changes from the book in which Esmeralda and Quasimodo both. Quite frankly, I'm okay with that, because they had to keep that G rating somehow, even with a few scary moments here and there. The main theme of this story is about self-acceptance and prejudice. There are moments when it's clear that Quasimodo and Frollo are mirror images of each other. They both have aspects in which they question themselves and have inner struggles. Quasimodo is a man who's been isolated for the 20 years of his life and longs to find acceptance in the outside world and himself. And Frollo has been living isolated in his own self-righteousness and longs to find the prize he believes he deserves. And that's Esmeralda. However, whereas Frollo is a genocidal maniac, Quasimodo genuinely loves her and finds himself happy with letting her find true love instead. But that's a pretty good message, and by far, one of Disney's greatest. It shows that it doesn't matter if the hero doesn't get the girl. All that matters is that you find that special feeling in yourself that says, you did it. That you accomplished your main goal and are finally happy with yourself. There's really no way that this message could be ruined and oh yeah, they had to make a direct-to-DVD sequel, but what about this movie? It's always best to think that this film never had a sequel. It was an independent movie in its own class, so the best to my knowledge, there's no direct-to-DVD sequel. But what do I rate this movie? Easily 8.5 out of 10. Anyways, that's all the time I got for this video. Remember to leave a like, comment below, and subscribe to my channel. You may see more reviewing videos in the future, so stay tuned. See you next time, and always remember, it's good to be a little mad.